Does it make any difference what color your trailer hook is? Good morning, guys and girls. July 3rd. The hot summertime is here in the South. Very definitely. We're going to go to the last book of the Bible, Revelations 3:20. Here I am, I stand at the door and knock. That's Jesus talking right there. Here I am, I stand at the door and knock. What I wrote about that was it could be all but impossible to find fish. We've all been there. Sometimes we just run out of options. We got no idea where to look. When we don't get help, these days usually end in total failure. We just get to the point sometimes we run out of possibilities. We run out of things in our mind. We run out of lures to try. We're stumped. But with just a little tip or two from a friend, we can completely turn that day around. You hear that? Just a little tip or two from a friend, we can completely turn that day around. I don't think I've told this story, but I can remember one time way back in the Bass Bells days. The Tulsa Bass Bells was a group of girls that got together and formed the first woman's bass club. It was just all women bass club. No men was allowed to fish, and it was in Tulsa, but we were only about 90 miles from Tulsa, and so Chris knew a lot of the girls that was in that club, and so she joined the club, even though we lived down on Lake Tenkiller. And I remember one tournament they had there on Lake Tenkiller where Chris was out there, and she was having a tough day. I think she had one little fish or something, and she ran into Joe Krieger's daughter. Now, Joe Krieger is a famous fisherman here from Oklahoma. I actually carried Joe down to Venezuela on a peacock bass fishing trip before he died. A great honor to get to do that. I fished on Joe Krieger's show when I was just a teenager as a guest, and so I got to return that favor to him later in life. But his daughter, Jeannie, I think was her name, Jeannie, ran into Chris out there while they were fishing the tournament. And Chris said, "Boy, it is tougher than a booger out here today, isn't it?" And Jeannie said, "Oh, that's great, man. I've got a limit. I've been calling all day long." And she took off and left. And Chris said, "Wow, I can't believe that. You know, she likes to throw that little scooper. That's a Bill Norman bait, an old Bill Norman bait, that little scooper. And it was a little tiny crankbait. It had a little bill on it. It was just sort of an ultralight type bait, but you could throw it just fine on casting reels. It weighed like maybe a quarter ounce, but it did dive deep, and it was just a dynamite bait. And that was Jeannie Krieger's favorite bait. So Chris thought, she told her partner, she said, "My gosh, if she's catching all those many fish, she's got to be using a little scooper." So Chris took that one little tip, and she didn't even tell her what bait she was using. She took that one little tip that she sort of figured out on her own, and that's the way good tournament fishermen do it. She took that one little tip. She said she's got to be catching on a little scooper. She tied a little scooper on and whacked them. I mean, whacked them. She won the tournament going away. And guess what? When Jeannie came in, she had two little fish. She was lying all along. She gave away the secret of how to catch them and didn't even know what she was doing. Didn't even know what she was doing. Okay, when we run out of options with a problem in everyday life, Jesus is that friend with the solution. Guys and girls, take that one to the bank. Jesus is that friend with the solution. No matter how much we failed in any situation, Jesus can turn that situation into success. Amazingly, he's always standing there, ready to help, ready to give us that victory. He's knocking on the door in our hearts. We just need to open up to him. You know, I get so many comments on this Catch of the Day channel, and I appreciate them so much. But so many of them are stories about this exact thing we're talking about, where Jesus was always there when people were going through struggles, going through addictions, going through family problems, going through financial problems, going through illnesses. And Jesus always would come through for them. Even when they wasn't really calling on God, he would come through and bring them out. So he's knocking on the door of our hearts. We just need to open up to him. Okay, here's our tip for today. For extra color, try a red Daiichi bleeding hook as your trailer hook on spinner baits. And I'm not even sure if they're still making that hook anymore. It was a hook that we developed years ago, that because you know me, I like a little red on bait. It's the color that fish can see one of the two basic colors, the red and blue, that they can see best in most shallow water applications. And so I actually talked them into making a red hook, and they actually just dyed the hook. We can use dip and dye now. You can use actually the blade dye that we dye spinner blades with. You can buy a little bottle at Bass Pro Shop or Cabela's and just dip your trailer hook down in that. And that little bit of extra red on sometimes that you have in there, and it's just barely sticking out of your skirt on your spinner bait, sometimes that'll make a difference in catching a few fish in a day's time. So it's a good little trick to try, good little trick to try. Guys and girls, go out there and have you a big one. A lot of you be shooting firecrackers tonight. A lot of you be shooting firecrackers tomorrow night. Be safe. And listen, I know you rednecks, you'd like to light them up and throw them. You're going to blow your casting finger off. Don't do that. I'll be doing that myself. Hey, I love you.